The moment Candace Owens interrupted Jasmine Crockett, everything changed. It was supposed to be just another debate, but what happened next shocked the entire crowd, shut down the internet, and sparked a conversation America wasn't ready for. No yelling. No insults. Just one bold woman standing her ground, and making history with 5 unforgettable words. This wasn't just a viral moment. It was a turning point. Here's the full story behind the confrontation that left everyone speechless, and the internet on fire. The entire room froze. Just like that, silence fell over every single person in the crowd, the panel, and even the camera crew. Candace Owens had just done what many feared she might. She interrupted Representative Jasmine Crockett right in the middle of her argument, and the energy in the room shifted in an instant. It wasn't just a small interjection or a polite disagreement, it was sharp, deliberate, and dismissive. Jasmine had been passionately laying out her views on systemic injustice in the legal system, calmly explaining disparities that continue to affect millions of Americans, particularly Black Americans. She was controlled, powerful, and speaking with precision. Every eye was on her, every ear locked into what she had to say, until suddenly, Candace leaned in, waved her hand slightly, and loudly said, "No, that's not true. You're misrepresenting the facts." The moment those words cut through Jasmine's sentence, the atmosphere turned electric. Some gasped out loud. Others exchanged glances, unsure if what they'd just witnessed was real. Jasmine didn't respond immediately, she didn't need to. She turned her head slowly toward Candace, her face calm but clearly steeled with focus. The silence was deafening. Then she said it, 5 words, calmly and firmly, "Don't interrupt me." Those words hit like a bullet. The kind of bullet that doesn't wound, but commands respect. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Every ounce of control and confidence Jasmine carried was packed into those 5 syllables, and the room felt it. Candace, who's used to rattling her opponents and throwing them off track with her interruptions, looked taken aback, just for a second. But that second said everything. Jasmine wasn't shaken. She didn't stumble. She didn't raise her voice. She held her ground. You could hear a pin drop in the room as the tension thickened. Jasmine slowly turned back toward the moderator, who now looked visibly tense, trying to regain control of the panel. Meanwhile, people in the audience were still frozen, half stunned by Candace's boldness, and half in awe of Jasmine's unshakable calm. And here's the thing, this wasn't just a disagreement between 2 political figures, this was a moment. Because when a Black woman like Jasmine Crockett is confidently speaking about injustice and someone attempts to silence her with a loud, dismissive interruption, it's not just rude. It's symbolic. It's triggering for millions of people watching who have been told their voice is too loud, their truth is too confrontational, or their facts are inconvenient. Jasmine's refusal to back down wasn't just about defending her speaking time, it was about defending the very idea that truth deserves space, that justice deserves volume, and that people like her won't be silenced, not anymore. As she resumed her statement, her voice didn't shake. She picked up right where she left off, as if Candace's outburst never happened. But everyone knew it had, and they knew it changed the tone of the room. The moderator tried to ease the tension with a quick "let's give each other space to speak," but it was already too late. The audience now knew who was in control. Jasmine didn't need to scream. She didn't need to insult. She owned the space through composure. And the power of that was undeniable. On social media, the clip of that moment was already being clipped and captioned. People who had tuned in to see a calm discussion were now glued to their screens. They watched Jasmine say those 5 words again and again, "Don't interrupt me." Some called it the moment she snatched the mic without touching it. Others said it was the clap back of the year, without even clapping back. And what's wild is that Jasmine hadn't even gotten to her most powerful points yet. But in that one instant, she established that she wasn't just another guest on the panel, she was the force in the room. Even the way she sat, upright, steady, hands folded, spoke volumes. She didn't react emotionally, and she didn't raise her volume. She chose dominance through silence and certainty. And that choice, that strategy, made the moment unforgettable. It's one thing to talk politics. It's another thing to show people what leadership actually looks like in real time. Jasmine Crockett did that in 5 words. And everyone watching knew this wasn't going to be a regular debate. Candace Owens and Jasmine Crockett aren't just 2 political voices, they represent 2 completely different worlds colliding on live television, and when they clashed that night, it was more than personal, it was cultural, generational, and political war in real time. Candace, armed with her usual sharp delivery and unapologetically conservative stance, came to the debate ready to provoke, ready to challenge, and ready to control the narrative. She wasted no time, claiming that Jasmine's approach to politics was driven by emotion over logic and accused her of dividing Americans by race instead of uniting them with facts. It was classic Candace, bold, calculated, and designed to get a reaction. But Jasmine Crockett didn't play into it. She didn't blink. Instead, she waited for Candace to finish and then dropped what would become one of the most replayed lines of the night. The only thing more dangerous than ignoring racism is pretending it doesn't exist. That one sentence flipped the energy on its head. The audience, already tense from the earlier interruption, broke into loud applause. Some even stood up. It was clear, Jasmine had touched a nerve. Candace tried to jump in again, this time, calling Jasmine disingenuous and accusing her of spreading a victimhood narrative. She said, "We've got to stop blaming the system and start looking at our own decisions." But Jasmine didn't let her off the hook. She leaned slightly forward, eyes locked, and responded, "When the system has been built to benefit some and punish others, the decisions you're talking about were made for us long before we had a choice." That line hit hard. The moderator could barely keep control of the conversation. The crowd was alive, some cheering, some shaking their heads, but nobody looked away. This wasn't just a panel, it was a showdown between 2 radically different ideologies, one that demands change from the top down, and one that says change starts from the bottom regardless of who's at the top. Candace, clearly trying to reclaim control, began rattling off statistics, talking about fatherless homes, dropout rates, crime. It was her usual talking points, but Jasmine was ready. Without raising her voice, she said, "Numbers don't mean anything if you ignore why they exist. You want to use data to dismiss our struggle, but that data is the result of that struggle, not the excuse to ignore it." Another thunderous reaction from the audience. Even the moderator was visibly caught off guard. Jasmine wasn't just debating, she was teaching, in real time, and the viewers could feel it. Every time Candace tried to pivot, Jasmine brought it back to the root cause. Every time Candace framed it as a personal responsibility issue, Jasmine expanded it into a systemic injustice conversation. And what made it so powerful was that Jasmine never lost her cool. She didn't shout. She didn't interrupt. She didn't get flustered. She let Candace talk, and then calmly dismantled each point with razor-sharp clarity. She wasn't just winning a debate, she was shifting the energy in the room. At one point, Candace even said, "You're making everything about race." And Jasmine's response? Quiet. Precise. Unforgettable. Everything is about race when you're black in America and the system won't let you forget it. That was the moment the debate became a movement. Viewers watching from home started flooding social media. Clips of Jasmine's responses began circulating with captions like "realest moment on TV all year" and "Candace finally met her match." What was expected to be a civil panel discussion turned into a viral confrontation that exposed just how deep these divides go. But even more than that, it showed the power of being unapologetically truthful in a space that often rewards soundbites over substance. Jasmine Crockett wasn't performing. She wasn't playing to the cameras. She was speaking her truth, and challenging her opponent's narrative without ever stooping to insult or personal attacks. Meanwhile, Candace seemed rattled, visibly frustrated that her usual strategies weren't landing. The usual applause she gets from interrupting and taking control just wasn't there. Jasmine had the crowd, not just in the room, but across the country. People were live tweeting, clipping, sharing, reacting. And the common reaction? Candace walked in thinking she'd dominate, and Jasmine walked out owning the room. This wasn't just a battle of opinions, it was a battle of presence. And Jasmine proved that even in the face of aggressive tactics, you don't have to be the loudest to be the most powerful. You just have to be the most honest. And in this case, that honesty left the whole nation talking. The internet didn't just react, it exploded. Within minutes of the panel ending, Jasmine Crockett's confrontation with Candace Owens was everywhere. Clips of her saying "don't interrupt me" and "you can't fix a problem you refuse to admit exists" were cut, edited, and reposted by every major political page, celebrity activist account, and Gen Z meme page online. On TikTok, the soundbite of Jasmine calmly dismantling Candace's argument became a trending audio within hours, used in skits, commentary, and even political education videos. On X, formerly Twitter, hashtags like #Jasmine vs. Candace, #Crockett shuts it down, and #mic drop moment were in the global top 10. Users were quoting her, remixing her statements, and even putting her words to music. One viral remix turned her line "everything is about race when the system won't let you forget it" into a beat drop that racked up over 1 million views in a single day. Jasmine's name surged in Google Trends, her Instagram follower count skyrocketed, and even politicians began weighing in. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez reposted the clip with the caption, "This is how you stay composed while speaking truth to power." Meanwhile, conservative influencers scrambled to defend Candace Owens. Some called the panel setup, saying Jasmine had more time, or that the audience was unfairly biased. But that only added more fuel. Because the people watching didn't care about excuses, they cared about the fact that Jasmine had stood her ground and done it with intelligence, strength, and class. What really shocked people, though, wasn't just what Jasmine said, it was how she said it. She never yelled. She never interrupted. She never made it personal. And yet, somehow, she completely flipped the script on one of the most media-savvy conservatives in the country. Candace, who's usually the one to dominate headlines, was suddenly in the background of her own moment. Viewers noticed. Commenters pointed out how Candace's tactics didn't work this time, how her usual playbook of speaking louder, faster, and with more confidence failed in the face of Jasmine's calm command. One top comment read, "Candace finally met someone who doesn't flinch when challenged." That's the difference between volume and power. Others compared the moment to previous viral political showdowns, calling it the new AOC versus Tucker or Kamala in the Senate chambers level energy. Even late-night shows jumped on the moment. Stephen Colbert played the clip, pausing after Jasmine's "don't interrupt me" line and saying, "I felt that through the screen." Jimmy Fallon joked, "Candace walked into that panel like a bulldozer, and Jasmine Crockett made her stall in front of a live audience." Beyond the jokes and memes, something deeper was happening. Young viewers, especially Black and Brown Americans, were seeing themselves represented in a way they hadn't in a long time. Not just someone who looked like them, but someone who spoke like them, stood up like them, and refused to be silenced. Teachers were sharing the video in classrooms. Activists were using it to energize followers. One viral thread even said, "This is how you debate. No screaming. No name-calling. Just truth, delivered with poise." Meanwhile, Jasmine said almost nothing online. No long captions. No clapbacks. No reaction video. Just a single tweet, "The truth doesn't need to trend." But when it does, it means somebody's finally listening. That tweet alone hit over 3 million impressions in 2 days. Even celebrities got involved. Kerry Washington called Jasmine a masterclass in grace under fire. D.L. Hughley said, "Candace just got dragged without a single insult thrown." Ava DuVernay posted the clip with a single word, "Queen." The moment wasn't just trending, it was resonating. It was reminding people of what real leadership looks like when it's unscripted and raw. It wasn't polished. It wasn't perfectly framed. But it was real. And people couldn't get enough of it. Candace, on the other hand, went into damage control. She did a reaction video, blaming the woke mob, saying the moderator silenced her, and even accusing Jasmine of using emotional manipulation. But the internet wasn't buying it. People flooded her comments with Jasmine quotes. Even on conservative pages, there were users saying, "I don't even agree with Jasmine politically, but she made Candace look small without even trying." That's the kind of impact Jasmine had. She didn't win just because she had better points. She won because she made people feel something powerful, something honest, and something unshakably real. And in the age of digital noise, that kind of authenticity doesn't just go viral. It sticks. This wasn't just a trending topic, it was a cultural moment that reminded millions why speaking truth to power still matters. While the viral moment between Jasmine Crockett and Candace Owens was dominating every screen in America, what most people didn't see was what happened after the cameras stopped rolling, and that part was just as powerful. Backstage, the energy was buzzing. People from the audience, many of them young activists, students, and organizers, were trying to catch a moment with Jasmine. Some were clapping as she walked past, others simply whispered thank you as she moved through the hallway with the same calm grace she showed on stage. But it wasn't just applause, it was emotion. One young black woman, maybe in her early 20s, broke into tears as she approached Jasmine and said, "You said what I've always wanted to say. You didn't just speak for you, you spoke for all of us." Jasmine paused, hugged her, and responded with just 5 words, "We all deserve to be heard." Meanwhile, Candace Owens wasn't in sight. According to multiple sources at the event, Candace left quickly, avoiding post-show interviews and declining all press requests. She was escorted out through a separate exit, reportedly frustrated with how the conversation had played out and how the audience had responded. A few conservative commentators began posting almost immediately, calling the event hostile, and claiming that Candace was set up and ambushed by the left. But those claims didn't match what people in the room experienced. The crowd wasn't wild or unhinged, it was engaged. They reacted not to volume, but to truth. They clapped when they felt empowered. They went silent when things got tense. And in those silences, Jasmine never faltered. It was clear she didn't need a fanbase behind her to hold her ground, she held it because she believed in every word she spoke. Backstage, journalists tried to get a few words from her. Jasmine didn't give a lengthy statement. She just said, "Tonight was about truth. If someone's uncomfortable, that's not my responsibility, it's my responsibility to be honest." That quote would end up headlining dozens of articles within hours. Meanwhile, several attendees said what stood out most to them wasn't just what Jasmine said on stage, but how she carried herself after. She didn't gloat. She didn't celebrate. She didn't act like she'd just won a debate. She acted like someone who was used to fighting tough battles, and wasn't shaken by winning or losing. And that's what made the moment resonate even deeper. This wasn't a celebrity moment. It wasn't about clout. It was about conviction. Behind closed doors, a few political insiders started talking about the long-term impact. A staffer from a progressive think tank said, "Jasmine didn't just make a point tonight, she made a name. This is the kind of moment that puts someone in national spotlight for good." And they might be right. Because even behind the scenes, the buzz was building around what she represented, not just another politician, but a new kind of voice. A voice that's unbothered by the usual media games. A voice that doesn't try to go viral, but goes viral because of how real it sounds. Candace Owens, on the other hand, stayed quiet most of the night until she posted a cryptic Instagram story that said, "When you're the only one telling the truth in a room full of liars, you become the villain. That's fine. I've played this role before." But the reaction to her post wasn't what she expected. Instead of support, she faced a wave of people commenting that she didn't get silenced, she just got challenged. Others pointed out that for someone who prides herself on debating, she seemed visibly uncomfortable when her tactics didn't land. Back at the venue, multiple organizers and crew members spoke with media outlets, saying that the moment between Jasmine and Candace wasn't planned, wasn't scripted, and wasn't set up to embarrass anyone. It just happened. And the authenticity of that is what made it hit harder than any pre-planned TV segment. One camera operator who worked the panel said, "I've filmed a lot of debates. This one felt different. It felt real. And you could feel who the room respected, even when things got tense. That kind of behind-the-scenes respect can't be manufactured. It comes when someone walks into a room, tells the truth, and walks out the same way, head high, voice steady, with nothing to prove. Jasmine Crockett did exactly that. And while Candace may have left the building, Jasmine's impact stayed long after. In fact, some organizers of the event said they were already considering inviting her back, not for a debate, but to lead a keynote on modern leadership. The kind of leadership that doesn't crumble under pressure. That doesn't panic when interrupted. That doesn't insult, but insists. That kind of power doesn't need a stage. It creates one. This wasn't just a viral moment, a trending hashtag, or a political soundbite, it was a cultural reset. What Jasmine Crockett did that night went far beyond a clash with Candace Owens. It became a symbol. A statement. A message to millions of Americans, especially young people, Black women, and marginalized communities, that they are no longer watching from the sidelines. They're speaking up, they're showing up, and they're not backing down when someone talks over them. Jasmine didn't need a mic drop, a raised voice, or a rehearsed punchline. She didn't try to go viral. She came prepared to speak the truth, and when she was interrupted, dismissed, and challenged, she stood taller, not louder. And that simple act, refusing to be silenced, spoke louder than anything Candace Owens could have shouted back. For some viewers, it was the first time they saw a politician look directly into the face of confrontation and respond with calm, controlled power. For others, it was a validation of what they've felt for years, that the real fight isn't about yelling louder, it's about refusing to be erased. That night, Jasmine became more than a representative. She became a mirror, reflecting a rising movement in America, a movement that demands justice, accountability, and equal space in every conversation. What Candace tried to do, interrupt, redirect, reframe, has worked on others. But not this time. Not with Jasmine. Because Jasmine didn't come to argue. She came to represent. And that authenticity couldn't be faked. You could see it in her tone, her eyes, her posture. She wasn't trying to win a moment. She was trying to protect a truth. And she did. The impact of that moment didn't stop at the stage, or backstage, or even on social media. It echoed into classrooms, community centers, college groups, barbershops, and dinner tables. It sparked conversations that America has avoided for too long. Parents showed it to their kids. Professors used it to teach media literacy. Activists used it to inspire new volunteers. And for every person who's ever been silenced, interrupted, or told they were too much, Jasmine Crockett became a reminder: you have every right to speak, and no one has the right to stop you. And let's not forget the political weight of that exchange. It wasn't just two women talking. It was two ideologies colliding, one that insists the system is broken and must be rebuilt, and one that insists the system is fine and you just need to work harder within it. Jasmine's calm dismantling of Candace's narrative didn't just expose a flaw, it exposed a fear. A fear that truth, when delivered with clarity and confidence, can cut through even the loudest lies. That's why the moment mattered. Because it wasn't about humiliation. It wasn't about drama. It was about truth finally being heard without apology. Jasmine didn't just defend herself, she defended an entire community's right to speak, to be believed, and to be respected. And the nation felt it. Days later, people were still talking about it. The clip was still circulating. Think pieces were being written. Reaction videos were still going up. But more importantly, a new generation of voices were being inspired. Not just to post. Not just to react. But to participate, to run, to vote, to speak up in every space where silence has been the rule. Jasmine Crockett showed what it looks like to hold your ground, not by overpowering, but by refusing to shrink. And in a world where so many conversations are dominated by those who shout the loudest, she reminded everyone that the most powerful voice in the room is the one that speaks with purpose, not ego. This wasn't a trending moment. It was a lasting one. And whether people agreed with her politics or not, most viewers agreed on one thing: Jasmine Crockett didn't just win a debate, she changed the energy of the entire conversation. She walked into that room prepared to be challenged. She walked out with a nation behind her. And in doing so, she reminded every single person watching that the truth, when spoken clearly, calmly, and without fear, will always rise above the noise. Always. If you were shocked by what happened between Jasmine Crockett and Candace Owens, you're not alone. This moment wasn't just political theater, it was real, raw, and unforgettable. Subscribe now to State Talk for more powerful breakdowns of the biggest moments in American politics. Because here, we don't just talk, we expose the truth. Turn on notifications, drop a comment below, and let us know. Whose side are you on?